Hey, it's me. How are you, folks? Wayne Kirkpatrick is our guest. He's a songwriter and musician. Talk about versatile. He's written in the styles of pop, contemporary Christian, country, and for the musical theater world. He's been called a songwriter's songwriter, and his songs have been recorded by a long list of artists. Just to name a few: Joe Cocker, Amy Grant, Kathy Mattea, Garth Brooks, Bonnie Raitt, Faith Hill, Joe Cocker, Michael W. Smith, Eric Clapton. We could keep on going. Wayne Kirkpatrick is also a record producer, and he's recorded his own work. He is the co-creator and co-composer of the musical Something Rotten. Well, sir, thank you very much for joining us.
Yes, great to be here.
How are you? You're in Nashville at the moment?
Yes, I live in Nashville, yes.
Doing well?
Yeah, staying busy.
So what is occupying your time at the moment?
At the moment, I am working on an animated movie, writing some songs for, it's a movie for Warner Brothers called Smallfoot that is coming out in September. My brother is directing it, and so I'm working on songs for that. And on the front end of toying with another musical.
Would you say that this world of writing for characters, like in this cartoon and the theater, is that more in your wheelhouse than writing songs that are recorded by recording artists?
No, I wouldn't say that it is more in my was more in my wheelhouse, but it's becoming more and more that. But I did. It's also kind of a full circle moment for me as well, because I started when I was in high school. I was in theater. I went to a magnet school, and I grew up in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and I went to a magnet school, and so you had to, maintain a grade point average, and you had to declare a major, and my major was theater. So I was in musicals, in plays and musicals all through high school. And then when I left high school, I pursued the commercial songwriting aspect of it. And so coming back around and doing theater again, I kind of feel like I've just kind of made a full circle, back into that world. So to say it was in my wheelhouse, I wouldn't go that far, except for that I've always loved music theater. It's different to watch it and observe it and love it. It's different than it is to write it, So even though I came back into it and came with a certain skill set of writing songs, there was still a learning curve of actually taking that and applying it to theater and to character and story and all of that. So it's a learning process, but getting better at it.
People wouldn't necessarily think of Nashville for being a place with musical theater. I mean, they have a Broadway, but
right.
Is there a community there of musical theater people?
Well, there are, but oddly enough, I didn't really truly discover it until after I had done theater in New York. So I wasn't. I was aware. There's Tennessee Performing Arts Center, which is the big where the Broadway series shows come, and then there's a local theater production company called Studio 10, TENN, that does great local productions, and then there's Tennessee Rep, and then Bug Theater, which is a children's theater, and some other theater groups around town that I was vaguely aware of, but I wasn't involved with at all. And once I started doing theater in New York and then came back to Nashville after that, I became more connected with people in that world and became more aware of just exactly what was going on in Nashville theater-wise on a more intimate level. And it's an area. There's a great a love of theater in Nashville, but I would say that the theater community in general is still, it's kind of on the front. It's growing. It continues to grow. People wouldn't think of Nashville as a theater town yet, but I think there are people that are working on making that more of a reality, you know.
Something you hear from a lot of people in the world of songwriting for country music is how competitive it is.
Uh-huh.
Would you say that the musical theater world is as competitive?
Sure. I think all of it is inherently competitive. I mean, sometimes competitive sounds like a cutthroat, vicious type of word to use, but it's not really. I mean, it's competitive by just the nature of what you're doing. You know, there are a lot of people that are great writers and great performers and great producers and so you're just competing with trying to find your way in to all of that, or try to create something that can compete with all of the other great stuff that's out there, you know. So it's just naturally competitive. At the same time, or I can say this, at least for Nashville and also the New York theater community, it's also, within its competitiveness, it's very supportive as well. So, you know, I know in Nashville, when something great or big happens for someone, the rest of the community really cheers them on, you know, and it's kind of a dual. You're excited for them, and then you also have that, oh man, I wish that could happen to me too, you know. I think it's, in a lot of time, my experience, it's competitive in the nicest way possible, you know.
How important do you think it is for a songwriter to have almost like a service-oriented attitude?
Service-oriented in terms of serving other people, you mean? Well, I don't know. I think that varies from situation to situation, but you know, I think if anything that you feel in service to, it's the song itself, you know, or the show. If it's in the case of theater, you know, you're in service of the piece that you are trying to create, you know. And then, of course, ultimately, that piece that you're trying to create is going out, and you're hoping that it appeals to a large group of people. So you're in service of the audience as well. But there's a selfish side to creating as well. You know, it's self-serving as well as it is, you know, public serving. Again, dualities are in all aspects of this business, I suppose.
We're talking with songwriter Wayne Kirkpatrick. I want to go back a little bit. Tell us a little bit about where you were born and where you were brought up.
Okay, well, I was actually born in Greenville, Mississippi, but I'm not from Mississippi. I didn't live there. It was so I really grew up in Louisiana. When I was really young, I was in two different places: Monroe, Louisiana, and then Alexandria, Louisiana, which are in the, you know, mid central Louisiana. And then the summer before I went into high school, I moved to Baton Rouge in South Louisiana, and really, you know, grew up and lived there until I moved to Nashville. So my roots are in Louisiana, and I consider myself a Louisiana native.
Did that at all give you a kinship or a commonality with the songwriter Gordon Kennedy?
I didn't discover his Louisiana connections until after we had gotten to know each other. But Gordon, I mean, Gordon grew up in Nashville. He's a Nashville native, really, but his family is from Louisiana and from Shreveport, which is North Louisiana, and which I had some relatives that lived up there. So we definitely had we had some sort of connection that way. In fact, my my wife, who is really into genealogy, she does a lot of genealogy research. And in her research, she found through a really long, really distant line that somehow that her and Gordon are actually related in some weird kind of way. So we got a kick out of that. And that was through my wife's from Louisiana too. So through some sort of Louisiana connection, she found some sort of distant relative. So I thought that was interesting.
So what was it that enticed you? What did you want to do when you came to Nashville?
I thought I wanted to be a singer-songwriter. I wrote songs all through high school, and I would perform them, and me and my guitar, and I came to Nashville thinking that that's what I wanted to do, and then there was a point where I was actually given the opportunity to possibly pursue that, and by that time, I really found that I knew that if I wholeheartedly pursued the artist route, then there was a part of me that was like, I can write songs all day, every day, of songs that I would sing myself. But the challenge to me was, can I write something that somebody else would want to sing? And so I felt like at that point, it's like, I think I want to focus on developing the craft of songwriting more than I wanted to develop the craft of an artistry, a recording artist. So that that was over the span of 2 or 3 years where I kind of landed on that. It's like the thought of writing something that somebody else would want to record was really appealing to me and a challenge to me, and so that's the route I took. And then years later, as a pet project, I made my own album, but it was more of a labor of love, and it was not intended or expected to be anything other than what it was,
The fact that it was just a labor of love, did it remove any kind of pressure?
Yeah, a lot of pressure, because a lot of it came out of there were a lot of songs that I wrote that I just knew, okay, no one else is ever going to record these, or I thought so. No one else is going to record these, but I would, So it was kind of a gathering songs over the years that kind of helped define if I was going to be a recording artist, or kind of fulfilling that fantasy of being a recording artist for a few months. So I wasn't really, because I wasn't expecting to be some sort of commercially successful recording artist or anything like that. It was just, I'm just going to do songs that move me on some level, and just do what I want to do. And fortunately, I had a record label, a friend of mine that ran the label, that allowed me to do that and supported that, So it was kind of the perfect situation to be in, and there was no pressure at all.
So who was the first recording artist to record a song that you either wrote or co-wrote?
The very first song that I had recorded was a Christian artist named Billy Sprague. And I wrote I had started a song called What a Way to Go. And I got together with him. He was doing his first album. And I got together with him, showed him that idea, and then we finished it together. And that was the first song I had recorded. And then the next 2 songs after that I had recorded were on an Amy Grant Unguarded album, a song called Wise Up and a song called Love of Another Kind. And then those were the kind of the first big cut. She was a significant artist at the time, and having a cut on her record felt like a big deal at the time, So, and then that's what kind of started me on my path.
What was it like when you found out Amy Grant was going to record those songs?
Well, I felt like I got on the songwriter, I think, at that time, that was in the mid '80s, and especially in Christian music, the having a song on an Amy Grant record, that was about as big as you could get, for a songwriter. So I was pretty pretty excited that that was happening, and that not only one but two songs were being recorded by her, and there was a little bit of I'll believe it when I see it, but it happened, and it was such a pivotal moment in the lives of in the life of a songwriter, especially a very young songwriter, to get something recorded on with an artist of that stature really legitimizes you and validates you as a songwriter. It's a really great calling card and a door opener. So I was extremely excited about that.
When you have a certain song that you have recorded a demo for and you have it in your mind, oh gosh, this would be perfect for this artist.
Mm-hmm.
How does one go about trying to at least get that song heard by that artist or a producer of that artist?
Well, if you're signed with a publisher, then then they have the avenues, the places to send that song to hopefully get it listened to. Whether it's the record label, the A&R person at a record label, or the producer, or the manager. There are several different avenues to try to get your song listened to, the artists themselves, or if you know them. So being with a publisher helps if you don't have those relationships yourself. Of course, the longer you're around and in the business, you start making those contacts, and then you can go directly to the producer yourself, or the manager, or whatever it is. Or in a lot of cases, and the reason it's done a lot, is writing with the artist themselves. But if it's an existing song and you have a relationship with the artist, you can say, hey, I've got something I want you to listen to, and they're usually receptive to that. Usually if they're not writers themselves, or that they're collaborators, when they start looking for material for their album, they're asking, hey, if you've got anything, we're looking, So, but several ways, it's a lot harder if you're not locked into, with a publisher, or if you're just starting out, trying to kind of break through that door. It's a lot harder. But once you break through it, it gets, and like I said, if you're legitimized and validated because you've got a resume, because you've had songs on other records, then it makes it easier to get access to those people.
What would you say would be a performance or a recording of a song that you wrote or co-wrote that surprised you?
Well, those early on, I mean, the song like Wise Up, that was on the Amy Grant record, Wise Up and Love of Another Kind, those were kind of wow moments for me, not only because they were some of my first songs to be recorded, but the demos were so rudimentary compared to what they became when Brown Bannister, who was the producer, and what they did with it. There's a certain aspect of it was like, wow, I wrote that. That sounds a lot better than what I did. And then flash forward to, I would say, the first time I heard "Change the World." Actually, the first time I heard it, I thought, wow, that sounds really great. I can't imagine how it would work on the radio, but it sounds really great, And so those moments where something is elevated to a place where you couldn't have imagined it going, or making it happen on your own. And then, so those are a couple of examples of when I felt that.
When someone has written as many songs as you have, is it at all bothersome in any way when someone says something like, oh yeah, Wayne Kirkpatrick, he's one of the Change the World guys?
No, that doesn't bother me at all. I'll take that any day. I'm very happy to be one of those guys and be connected to that song and to the other guys that I wrote it with. And yeah, that song changed my life in a lot of ways, you know. So yeah, I have no problem with that.
I mean, I have to say, it was a day or so after I had interviewed Gordon Kennedy,
Yeah.
and I was cruising through the radio, and I heard the first few notes of Change the World, and just as somebody who just interviewed one of the writers, it kind of gave me a little rush. Like,
Yeah.
so what's it like for you when you're either in a mall or at a restaurant or in your car and you think, gosh, this sounds like a song I wrote. Oh, wait, it is.
Yeah. I have been in a car, you know, or somewhere in Home Depot or something. It's like, this song sounds familiar. Where have I heard that before? And it's like, oh yeah, I wrote that. I have had those moments, you know, because it's not like I sit around and listen to everything that I've done every day. You know, you kind of work on something and then move on to the next thing. So for it to come back, you know, it takes a minute for it to for me to realize why it sounds familiar. But it's always, I mean, even I always think back to just being that shy kid sitting in my bedroom trying to write songs and imagine if somebody would ever want to record something that I wrote. And then, so I kind of always go back to that in my mind and just have that, you know, who'd have thought I'd be standing in Home Depot and hearing Bonnie Raitt singing something that I wrote. You know, it's kind of it's always a little bit surreal to me.
Has there been a recording artist in particular that you were in awe of the fact that they were recording one of your songs?
Um, well, all we sure Eric Clapton, Bonnie Raitt, and Amy Grant, to name a few. Yeah, those are I guess those artists are in a league that I don't consider myself to be in, you know, and so to think that they saw something in something that I wrote that was worthy enough to be added to their roster, you know, is pretty thrilling to me.
It seems like you place importance on humility.
Well, I think it's important to keep everything in perspective.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Well, with that said, how important do you think it is when you're undertaking music or theater or anything like that to be confident?
Well, I think it's probably important to be confident or appear confident, but I find it hard to maintain confidence because, and you know, when you really talk to, well, I'm sure you've talked to a lot of people. I don't know if it's consistent or not. It seems like all the people I talk to, there's everyone just below the surface is incredibly insecure about their abilities, you know.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. I've tried to figure out how to determine why that is about myself because I have been surrounded by incredibly supportive people, whether it would be growing up my parents or my family, my friends. You know, I've been supported by so many people, and yet when I, you know, am working on something and or presenting something, there's always that element of I don't know if I'm good enough, you know, and I don't know why that is, but I know that at least for me, I feel like if I ever lost that, then the quality would go with it. You know, if I ever thought that I was way better than anybody else in the room, then it's over. So I embrace the torture of of questioning everything that I create, so that it keeps me on my toes. And it's not, and it is a genuine. it is genuine insecurity. You know, it's not a false sense of insecurity. I mean, I think there's always someone that can do something better, and I think there are times when there are people that can do things worse. I do acknowledge that, and so all I can do is just try to keep pushing myself to do the best that I can be, and I don't really care about being the very best in the world as much as I care about being the best that I can be, you know.
As we were mentioning at the beginning of the interview, you're one of the co-composers of Something Rotten,
Right.
the musical. When you were in the formative stages, or anywhere really, in the process of the writing, the conceptualizing, were you at all thinking about critics, about reception?
Not early on, no. We were just thinking, me and my brother both had for years, because he was in theater too in high school, and we just have always wanted to write a musical. And my brother's a screenwriter, and thinking about what other people would think about it was not really on our minds as much as just this desire to write a musical, which we talked about doing and tossed around ideas for about 15 years before we actually said, okay, if we're ever going to do this, we need to sit down, carve out time, and do it. You know, so and there wasn't like, when you're creating something like that. That would be detrimental to be thinking, oh, what are other people going to think about this? That goes for anything. That goes for writing a song, producing a record. I mean, you as a writer, you have to try to think in terms of what is this going to how is this going to be good for the best choices for us in the creative process. What's going to make the best show? What's going to make the best piece of work? So it's really all, like I said earlier, about being in service of the show, or it's just all about creating this thing, and then sure, you hope that people like it. I mean, but before you ever get to the critics, you have to get to the other people that can help you make it happen. So it's theater producers, theater director, and all of that. So, and then but really at its core, it's like, how do we create something that we like, and then go from there. Worrying about the critics comes on opening night.
Well, on the note of opening night, what is that experience like when you've written a piece like that, and here it is, world?
Yeah, that's terrifying. And fortunately, with opening night, you have eased into it, because by the time you get to opening night, we had a month of previews before a live audience, and so that's where you're putting it up. People are coming, buying tickets to see it, and then you're tweaking on it every day, and fine tuning it, and you have a month to do that. And of course, before it ever got to previews, you're tweaking it. We had workshops and table reads and all this kind of stuff. So it's just an ongoing process. So a month of previews, and you've fine tuned it, and then you have your official opening night. So you kind of know what to expect as far as an audience reaction by that point. You're getting, in our case, because it's a comedy, you kind of know where the laughs are falling, how people are reacting to certain numbers and all that. So no big surprises. And the beauty of opening night is it's a theater full of supportive people, because it's invitation only. So it's a really great experience after a month of being terrified every night, because you're making changes and trying new stuff out in front of an audience. So yeah, the opening night was really fun. the nights leading up to it were the ones that were quite an experience. Every emotion in the book, really, from a nervous, terrifying, exhilarated, just and everything in between. It was quite a roller coaster of emotions putting up a musical.
What is the best thing about being Wayne Kirkpatrick?
I don't know. I've never been asked that question, I don't think. Probably it has nothing to do with music. I would say my family, having a great family. I have a great wife that we've been together since we went to high school together. So, and then I have three great kids that are all grown now. My youngest one is just graduating college, and they are just wonderful, not only wonderful kids, but wonderful people. And to me, that's my greatest accomplishment is three kids that I'm proud of.
One of the great things about communication today is just how we can communicate to people all over. And it's just amazing sometimes who you hear from. So this is very open-ended, but for anyone who's listening in, wherever they might be, what would you say to them, just to give you the stage?
You mean in regards to what? In regards to pursuing dreams? I mean, I'm sure there are people that are listening that want to be in some form of the creative fields, and maybe feel like they don't have what it takes, or and all I can do is relate that to my own experiences. I really feel like if I can do it, that anybody can, because I was a wallflower. I was an incredibly shy introvert growing up, and did not really know if I had what it took to pursue these dreams that I wanted. And but if you if you're passionate enough about something, then you should follow that as far as it can take you. And there's no guarantees on what you come up against and what kind of success you will have at it, but everything is such a gamble. You can take a route that you feel like is a safer route. And I did this too, because I wanted to be in music and I wanted to be a songwriter, but I went to school and studied landscape architecture and in Louisiana for almost 3 years. And one day it was like, you know what? I don't want to be a landscape architect. And I was doing that as something to fall back on, which is the wrong way to go about pursuing your dreams and your passions. You have to kind of give yourself over to them, and in order for them to work themselves out. And so for me, and this is, I'm not saying this is advice for someone. All I can speak to is my own experiences. But to me, I had to surrender to the this burning desire that I had to pursue and see if I could make something of this musical passion that I had. And so I packed up my car and moved to Nashville, and I was like, I'm going to go see if I can either hang with the big boys or get sent home with my tail between my legs. But either way, at least I know that I gave it a try. So 30 years from then, I didn't want to be sitting around going, I wonder what would have happened if I had just done this, So either way, even if I failed, I would know the answer to that. And we have the shots that we are given, and the chances that we take. And so it's what I've told my kid, if you're going to fail, fail at something that you loved. Because if you go down a road that is like, well, I played it safe, and even if it's like you might be making a ton of money, or all this, but if it's not fulfilling, then I just think you're kind of denying yourself a certain bit of happiness that you might, and happiness does not always equate to how much money you make, or anything like that, but it's just that if your soul is nourished, and I think it's especially when you're young, to be able to take those chances and pursue them where you can. That's a long-winded way around saying that, but I had to process that question as I was answering it. So,
well, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure to connect with you.
Yeah, likewise. I appreciate it.
Looks like a very nice studio.
Oh, well, it's an old house that was converted into a studio, and it's been my studio home for quite a while, so it's my safe place.
I should have thought about maybe asking you to play something.
Oh.
Well, I've enjoyed talking to you.
All right. Nice talking to you, too.
All right. Well, until next time.
Okay. Thank you.
Have a wonderful one.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.